have this conversation in front of the people. In terms of like I was telling you about the birth certificate, and I was telling you about the Negro and the color, and you was telling me about the paper genocide. What exactly do you mean out there for those who may not be aware?
Well, the paper genocide was it's been going on since they've been here, but the reclassification of us on paper to not be native, to not be natural to the land is the goal of the paper genocide. So they did things that changed who we were on paper so that in the future they can say we somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to disassociate us from the land. We got to keep that at the forefront of our minds when we study in the African slave narrative, the invasion of Europe into the Americas. We got to always keep in front of the forefront of our mind that everything they finna do after 1492 was to make the people from the land mentally, psychologically disassociate from the land. And the side effect of that is you denying your spirituality, your natural spirituality, because your natural spirituality springs from the things that you do on your land. We don't claim the land. We say we belong to this land. The land don't belong to us. That's why we can't sell it. In the paper genocide, they was, using war machine to push us back further and further west until they got Spanish pushing back to the east. We got the French stuck in the middle in what we call the Louisiana Territory. That was all of Canada and everything west of Appalachia, east of the Rockies, down into the New Orleans capital of the empire at the time. We didn't do intake on the coast board, the Eastern Coast Board, until after we were fighting what we called a two-tier war, collateral attack of French and Spanish forces. The French was called Huguenots. The Spanish were called conquistadors, but the English was called the gentry. So they went to King George because we was fighting French in the Louisiana Territory, Spanish in the Florida Territory. So what ended up happening was they put Georgia as a military buffer zone of gentry. So they put the English between the Spanish and the French while we were fighting. In order to, but when the French lost, they had to leave. But they sent us back a gift called the Statue of Liberty, a drag queen. Right. So now that they got this military buffer zone, they have to bulldoze the people out of that area to set up their military barricades, which became later cities. Atlanta is ancient. Savannah is ancient. But a lot of the lesser cities throughout Georgia were military outposts before they was incorporated as cities. And that was to put there to stop the assistance in the Gullah Wars of the rest of the tribes that was marching in coming from the West. That's how come they knew how the French lost. So now the English and the Spanish is the only ones left. The Spanish decided to take Mexico, which then consisted of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Arizona, and I think Nevada and parts of, I think, Utah. It was one of them, either Utah or Colorado. But they won it in the Mesoamerican War agreement between, now remember, these treaties has nothing to do with us. We didn't sign no treaties with these people. They signing the treaties with each other, the French, the Spanish, and the English. But they telling us that these treaties is the governing instruments of law to our land. These treaties don't have nothing to do with us. There's no little river running because we use names that are related to nature. Right? There is no sunset over the mountain. There ain't none of them names in none of the treaties. They got Chief John Smith. Who the hell made him the chief? Because there wasn't no John Smith chiefs over here yet. Because we wasn't using European names yet. So when they doing all of these treaties, so they Mexico ceded the states that we have in the Southwest as part of the treaty to end the Mesoamerican War. France did not cede the Louisiana Territory because they had fought to a stalemate. When they was leaving, they sold it as a protectorate right. Some of the local chiefs signed protectorate agreements with the French. If they don't invade the land, they can protect us from the sea. That was what they were supposed to do. Then they fought for the Port Nola, which became the Fort New Orleans. They fought for that, and that's how they end up having what's called protectorate rights. But that's not right to settle, squat, salvage, pillage, rape, demean people, murder indiscriminately across the land. All of these things they've done since the purchase. They was never supposed to cross the Appalachian Mountains. That's in their record. They know they wasn't never supposed to cross the Appalachians. So everything west of the Appalachians is what we call hostile occupied territory of a foreign agent. America had nothing to do with us. It's all an illusion. It's a grand design to erase us on paper first, but once we believe they hype, we disassociate from the land. That's why they keep pointing us to Africa. See, we took the immigrants in Port Nola. They weren't allowed to come in nowhere. The Big Easy was the sorting ground. This is where your temperament tested. You get sent to a parish. If you function in that parish and this is your temperament, then they tell you where across the land you can settle, because now they know you ain't got to get your head split by them Bloods and Crips out west, because they going to send you to the Midwest because your character type, personality, and disposition fit in with Vice Lords and GDs way better than Bloods and Crips, because they going to get you. Right? So a lot of people was directed to what we called in that day Shinnecock territory. Today you know it as New York. That's Shinnecock territory. And they had the Shinnecock Nation consists of varying other tribes that was tied to their leadership in an affiliation of tribes that stretched from Maine all the way to what you call the Great Lakes State, Michigan, where Pennsylvania butts up against, what's that, Lake Huron, I think, or Erie? I keep forgetting. But anyway, the lakes, the all of that territory coming from the Lake Superior in the north, coming down into Lake Huron, all that was Shinnecock territory, but they had tribes. They had Mohawk, Tomahawk. They had all of the names are exonyms. The Mohawk didn't call themselves Mohawk. The people called them Mohawk, and the name began to be written in literature. That's how you know who they are. The Apache didn't call themselves the Apache, but that's what the settlers called them, right? And in those names being who they was recognized at in the reading material that was being disseminated, they have to go by the name that's written on the paper in order for the people that's doing the reading to know who they are. It's just like Cherokee. Cherokee is not a tribal name. It's an exonym, and it was used when we was using English language and dealing with English colonizers, which looked like me. They look more like me than any pale face from Europe. The first settlers that came from Columbus expedition to the Mayflower, to all of those were melanated people. We didn't start getting other people until they started advancing and getting land from us through the sweetheart swindle and murdering big mamas in order to turn family plots into plantations. It's all part of the paper genocide. So that's what the purpose of it is. The purpose of it is to make the people think they from another part of the earth and they have no claim to this part of the earth.
Mm-hmm. You know, I heard years ago, I remember I think Sonetta was filming at this time, and he did a video. It might have been with Dr. Aline Bay. It was somebody, and the Morris brother was saying that they had to do Hurricane Katrina because they had to give up that land back to I guess the Washita. That they had to get the land back to the Washita or something like that.
They still ain't got it back, so that can't be accurate. But they was trying to build a casino complex in the Ninth Ward, where all the most amount of people left.
Mm-hmm.
They was mad at them people. It was vengeance. Nobody wanted to give up their little quarter-acre plot with their house on it that their grandmama was living in, and her mama lived in. They didn't want to give it up because that's our culture. That's part of who we is. Once we get a plot of land, you almost got to use a welder to separate us from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when they was trying to get the Ninth Ward, they wanted to build a casino complex. That's what that was about. Katrina was about casino money and getting people off the land and they end up not using it. There's still a whole lot of vacant territory over there. I think it's called the Ninth Ward, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But they was planning on building a whole bunch of casinos, like 5 major casinos and then some hotels and restaurants and stuff, and the people didn't want to sell.
So Rod, around what year was they reclassifying people as? Did they start reclassifying people as Negro and colored?
As soon as they start, well, the year wise is subjective because none of those terms, we didn't describe people by skin color. We described them by character, right? We tie them to a totem and ascribe them to a character. Like, for instance, let's say Chief Standing Elk. That means he a stand-up dude and his totem is the elk, right? Chief Little River, right? He's a short dude, but his character flows like the river. This is how we name people. We didn't name people group names or classifications. Professions was named after the people that did the work. All of the Smiths were metal workers. All Smiths on this land they were metal workers, but we didn't call them Smiths. Smiths is a European term for people over there that did the same thing, metal workers. So they came over here, they named this whole family the Smiths. Right. So now all these people were Smiths. But then you had subgroups. You got the goldsmith, you got the blacksmith, right? And that means that the goldsmiths was the ones that was melting down the gold, making the bars. The blacksmiths was the ones who wrought the iron and made the fences and the gates that went around the family cemetery plot to keep the kids from playing on the ancestors. Mm-hmm. Right? So stuff like that we did naturally. This is already who we are. The family that was building the bridges, the European come over here and call their tribe the Bridges. Now you got all these people running around like Ty Bridges thinking he from Africa, and then he got some European name, last name Bridges.
Wow, damn. Hey, Ross,
all the time you organic to the land.
What percentage of Africans came to the U.S. versus, let's say, the Caribbean and South America?
That's less than 5%.
That's a small number, right?
Well, you got to remember.
You confident in that number? That's damn 5.
They told us that they brought 30 million niggas from Africa over here to North America in the South. And we was all on the plantations in the South. 30 million niggas from Africa. Them Africans' temperament ain't like that. You not finna put no 30 million Zulu, Dinka, Mandinka, you not finna put no 30 million of them nowhere and have peace. You gonna lose. We was already here and they was makeshifting family farms into plantations. And they was telling the family that worked the yard, worked the farms, they wasn't allowed to leave because there was a war going on.
Right.
That was the great deception. And the Masons got a record of it all. So I want they bring their ass out and start talking. Old raised and past ass niggas. Hiram told you motherfuckers to get to moving and y'all sitting there acting like that shit ain't true. So you don't even believe the shit you teach. Jabbaline, Jubaline, and Job. Man, all of them. They know what's going on.